What would you do if the flames were closing in, the air was choking your lungs, and the only sound you could hear was the cry of a child begging for help? Most people would freeze, but one single father, broken yet brave, did the unthinkable. He rushed into the fire unaware that the child he saved would change his life forever, and that she belonged to one of the most powerful women in the city. This is not just a story about fire, it's about sacrifice, redemption, and love in the most unexpected places. Stay with me till the end, because this story will remind you of the courage that lives inside us all. Ethan Clarke lived a quiet life on the outskirts of London. Once, he had dreamed big university degrees, travel, maybe even his own engineering firm. But dreams had a way of burning down, just like the building he was about to run into. After his wife passed away 3 years ago, Ethan devoted everything to raising his 7-year-old son, Noah. The world had not been kind. He worked long shifts at a small auto repair shop, scraping by, patching up cars, while secretly wondering if he was failing at patching up life. But Noah's laugh bright, carefree was the one thing that kept him going. On this particular evening, Ethan and Noah had been walking home, bags of groceries in hand, when they heard the screams. Across the street, an old apartment block had erupted in flames. Orange light split the night, smoke billowed into the dark sky, and sirens hadn't yet arrived. Panic was everywhere, families running, mothers clutching babies, neighbors shouting. Ethan froze, his instincts torn between shielding Noah and running toward the danger. Then he heard it, that child's cry, sharp, desperate. It was coming from the second floor. "Daddy, someone's still in there." Noah's voice trembled, his small hand tugging Ethan's sleeve. Ethan looked up at the blazing windows, his heart pounding. He could almost see the tiny shadow behind the smoke-stained glass. Fear stabbed at him. He was no firefighter, no hero. But the memory of his wife's last words echoed in his mind. "Promise me you lions raise Noah to be brave." If he turned away now, what would his son learn? Ethan shoved the grocery bags aside and pushed Noah toward a neighbor. "Stay here. Don't move, no matter what." Without another word, he sprinted across the street. The heat hit him like a wall, but he didn't stop. He pushed through the front door, smoke searing his lungs, vision blurring. Up the stairs, 2 at a time, the cries grew louder. In a corner of the hallway, curled against the wall, was a little girl, no older than 6. She coughed violently, her cheeks streaked with soot, her tiny hands trembling. Without hesitation, Ethan scooped her into his arms. "I've got you. You're safe now." But the flames had other plans. The staircase he came up was now blocked, swallowed by fire. Ethan's chest tightened, not just from the smoke, but from the thought that he might not make it out alive. He stumbled toward a window, coughing violently as the smoke clawed down his throat. The glass was hot, but with his elbow he shattered it, sending shards flying. The cool night air rushed in, a lifeline. People below screamed, pointing. "Up there, he's got her." Ethan clutched the girl tight, shielding her face. But the drop was too high. Jumping would kill them both. He scanned the room, desperate, until he saw an old fire escape barely holding on to the brick wall. With no time to think, he forced the girl through the broken window and climbed out. The metal groaned under their weight, the bolts threatening to snap. Each step felt like a prayer, but somehow they made it to the ground. The moment his feet touched the pavement, a cheer erupted. The girl clung to his neck, sobbing. Ethan collapsed to his knees, coughing so hard he could hardly breathe, but he held her tight as if she were his own. Minutes later, the fire trucks finally roared in, hoses blasting, medics rushing to the injured. A paramedic knelt beside Ethan, trying to pry the girl from his arms. She was sobbing into his shirt, refusing to let go. "It's okay," Ethan whispered, brushing her soot-streaked hair. "You're safe now." Finally, she was carried away to an ambulance. Ethan sat back on the curb, lungs burning, skin blistered, watching as the fire devoured what remained of the building. Noah ran to him, throwing his arms around his father. "You're okay. You saved her." Ethan smiled weakly, though his hands shook. He had no idea who the little girl was. He only knew she was alive. What he didn't know was that the entire city would soon know his name. The next morning, the story was everywhere: news outlets, social media, local radio. "Unknown man saves child from inferno." Photos showed Ethan cradling the girl, face soot-smudged, eyes fierce with determination. At the repair shop, co-workers clapped him on the back, calling him a hero. Ethan only shook his head. I just did what anyone would have done, but deep down, he wasn't so sure. Not everyone would run into fire, he knew that much. Still, he returned home to his small flat, made dinner for Noah, and tried to quiet the gnawing thought that his life had just changed forever. That night, there was a knock at his door. Ethan opened it to find two tall men in suits, their faces unreadable. Mr. Clark, one asked, "We need you to come with us immediately." Fear shot through him. Had something gone wrong with the girl? Was she hurt? Without giving Noah time to panic, Ethan told him to stay with a neighbor and followed the men outside. A sleek black car waited, the kind you only saw in movies. He climbed in, heart racing. They drove in silence, the city lights blurring past, until finally stopping in front of a towering glass skyscraper. Ethan stared up in disbelief. This was the headquarters of one of the wealthiest companies in Europe. What could they possibly want with him? Inside, marble floors gleamed, chandeliers sparkled, and people in sharp suits moved briskly about. Ethan felt painfully out of place in his worn jacket and work boots. The men led him into a private elevator and up to the top floor. When the doors opened, he stepped into a vast office overlooking the city. At the center stood a woman in her early 40s, her presence commanding yet elegant. Her sharp eyes softened when she saw him. "Mr. Clark," she said, her voice calm but heavy with emotion. "I'm Amelia Grant." Ethan's jaw nearly dropped. Amelia Grant, the CEO of Grant Enterprises, one of the most powerful women in the UK, and the little girl you saved. "She's my daughter." Ethan's chest tightened. Amelia gestured, and a nurse walked in with the girl. Her name, he learned, was Lily. She ran straight to her mother, but before Amelia could even kneel, Lily looked back at Ethan. "That's him, Mommy." "That's the man who saved me." Ethan smiled softly, his eyes misting. Amelia approached him, her composure cracking. "I don't know how to thank you. You didn't just save a life, you saved my life. If I had lost her," her voice broke. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, not used to being the center of such raw gratitude. "Anyone would have done it," he said again. But Amelia shook her head. "No, not anyone. You risked everything." From that moment, Amelia insisted on repaying him. She offered him money, a new home, a better job. Ethan refused each time. "I didn't do it for a reward." What he didn't realize was that Amelia wasn't offering out of duty, she was offering because she saw something in him. A man who had lost so much, yet still chose to risk his life for someone else's child. That night, she watched him leave her office, his son's small hand tucked in his, and for the first time in years, she felt curious. Who was Ethan Clark, really? The media frenzy didn't die down. Paparazzi showed up outside Ethan's flat, reporters called the shop, and strangers recognized him on the street. It was overwhelming, and Noah struggled most of all. "Daddy, why do people keep staring at us?" Ethan tried to shield him, but the story had already spread too far. One evening, when the crowd outside grew too much, a car pulled up. Amelia stepped out. "You can't stay here," she told him firmly. "Pack your things." "You and your son are coming with me," Ethan protested, but Amelia wasn't asking, she was protecting. Her estate was beyond anything Ethan could imagine: rolling gardens, halls lined with art, rooms bigger than his entire flat. Noah's eyes widened with wonder. "Daddy, this is like a castle." Ethan, however, felt uneasy. He didn't belong in a world of wealth and power. Amelia sensed his discomfort, but said nothing. Instead, she gave him space, letting him and Noah settle into the guest wing. Yet every time Ethan saw Lily, she ran to him, clinging as though he were her second father. And every time Amelia saw this, something in her heart softened. Days turned into weeks. Amelia and Ethan spoke more often over breakfasts, in the garden, late at night when Noah and Lily had fallen asleep. She learned about his late wife, about his struggle to raise Noah, about the quiet strength that had carried him through years of loneliness. And Ethan learned about Amelia's world of boardrooms, endless meetings, and the crushing weight of running an empire alone. She was powerful, yes, but she was also human, tired, vulnerable, and desperate to protect her daughter from a world that wanted to tear her apart. But not everyone welcomed Ethan. Amelia's board of directors whispered about him, calling him a distraction. The press speculated endlessly about their relationship. And one man in particular, Daniel Harlow, Amelia's ambitious business rival, saw Ethan as a weakness to exploit. "She's letting a mechanic into her life," he sneered to the media. "What does that say about her judgment?" The rumors spread like wildfire. Amelia's reputation wavered. And Ethan felt the crushing weight of guilt. He had never wanted to drag her down. One night, Ethan packed his bags. He told Noah they were leaving. But as he reached the door, Amelia appeared, her eyes fierce. "You think you're protecting me by leaving. You're not. You saved my daughter, Ethan. You saved me. Don't you understand? I don't care what the world thinks." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, quietly, she added, "I don't want you to go." Ethan froze, the walls around his heart cracking. But before he could answer, Lily appeared in the hallway, clutching Noah's hand. "Please don't leave," she whispered. So he stayed, but staying meant facing the storm. Paparazzi hounded them, investors questioned Amelia, and Ethan's own insecurities grew louder. He wasn't rich, educated, or powerful. He was just a man who fixed cars. How could he possibly belong in Amelia's world? One evening, he confessed his doubts. "You deserve someone who matches your life. Not someone like me." Amelia looked at him, her eyes unwavering. "Ethan, you're wrong. I don't need someone to match my world. I need someone to remind me what truly matters." Slowly, they grew closer. It wasn't the kind of romance that came with grand gestures. It was quieter shared meals, laughter between the children, moments of comfort when the weight of the world grew heavy. Ethan found himself looking forward to Amelia's voice, her presence, and Amelia found herself drawn to his honesty, his refusal to be dazzled by her wealth. For the first time in years, she felt like a woman, not just a CEO. But Daniel Harlow wasn't finished. Furious that Amelia's image had not crumbled, he set his sights on Ethan. He dug into his past, twisting truths into lies. Soon, tabloids screamed headlines, "Hero or hustler." The truth about Ethan Clark. Old debts, struggles, even his late wife's medical bills were paraded across pages. Noah saw the papers and cried, "Daddy, they're saying bad things about you." Ethan's fists clenched. He could take the insults, but not when they hurt his son. Amelia faced her board, her investors, the world, and for the first time she didn't hide behind polished speeches. She stood tall and said, "This man saved my daughter when no one else would. His worth is not measured by money, or titles, or status. It's measured by courage, and if the world can't see that, then I don't want their approval." The room fell silent. For a woman who had built her empire on power, these words shook everyone to their core. The scandal faded, as scandals always do, but something stronger remained. Amelia and Ethan's bond deepened, forged in fire and tested by the world. The children, Noah and Lily, grew inseparable, their laughter filling the grand halls of the estate. And slowly, Ethan began to believe he wasn't just a guest in Amelia's world. He was part of it. One evening, Amelia took him to the rooftop of her building. The city lights stretched endlessly below. She turned to him, her eyes soft but steady. "Ethan, I've lived surrounded by power all my life. But I never felt safe until you." Ethan's breath caught. For years, he had shut his heart away, convinced love had burned out with his wife. But in Amelia's eyes, he saw something new, something real. He took her hand, and for the first time, allowed himself to hope. Months later, the fire was only a memory, but its impact lingered. The day it happened, Ethan thought he was saving a child. But in truth, that night had saved him too. He had found purpose, love, and a family bigger than he ever imagined. Standing at the garden of Amelia's estate, watching Noah and Lily chase each other in the sunlight, Ethan finally understood, sometimes, from the ashes, life gives you a second chance. And so, the single father who once doubted his worth became something greater, not because of wealth or fame, but because he chose courage when it mattered most. The fire that threatened to destroy everything had instead ignited a bond that could never be broken. And as Ethan pulled Amelia close, her head resting against his shoulder, he whispered words he never thought he'd speak again. "We're home."